Hey, happy Thursday. Typically, this is where I would answer questions or, tell you a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. This time, what I thought I would do is something a little different, which is essentially a year in review, but just focused on the book reviews and the books I read this year. On my webpage, there's a tab that is reading, and it just lists all the books that I'm reading or, on my list or whatever. This list serves a couple of purposes. I mean, one, if you want to know what I'm reading, then you can obviously find that. But really self-serving, it's to help me remember the books I've read so that sometimes I forget, or more likely somebody asks me for a recommendation and I'm like, oh God, there's this one that I read last year, and this way I can go and find it. So when I was tailing the results for this year, I found I had read 163 books, read or listened, because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And every year I usually mark three or four books that are my favorite. Typically it's three. This year it was four. And it was kind of funny to go back and watch the evolution of this whole unsolicited book of reviews channel, because the videos began kind of haphazard, and then there was another one where I would have the book cover up, and then I would talk for a bit, and like the framing was weird, and you can kind of watch the art grow and shrink on my walls as you watch over the course of the year. But basically, this is a clip show with one bonus. So when I was going back through it, I realized I did book reviews for three of my favorite books, which were The Dawn of Everything by the two Davids, Grape Now and Wengrow. That's a book that I tell lots of people about and talk about often. James Bridle's Ways of Being, which is all about intelligence and the way we measure it. And then Anna Malika Tubbs's book, Three Mothers, which is about Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and James Baldwin. Their mothers, sorry, not really about them, but more about the mothers behind those men. And I realized I did not do a review for my very favorite novel of the year, which was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Um, so what I will do is you'll have this little clip to set it up. You'll see the different reviews for The Dawn of Everything, Ways of Being, and Three Mothers. And I'll conclude with the review of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. So um, I hope you have a wonderful rest of 2023. I'll see you in 2024 with more exciting things, I'm sure, as well. So, but happy holidays and safe travels. Bye. Happy Tuesday, unsolicited book review day. Today is already one of my very favorite books of the year, and it's not even February yet. So, but anyway, it's The Three Mothers by Anna Malika Tubbs, and it focuses on the mothers of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and James Baldwin. And it's an awesome book. I mean, it not only is a great encapsulation of history from the African American experience, but also obviously giving it a perspective that really hasn't been shared at this point, which is who are the mothers of these people who go on to be so famous and that we revere, and what were their lives like, and what kind of influence did they have on their children? And what Tubbs finds is the answer to that is a lot. They really overlap in a lot of interesting ways. And so Alberta King and Louise Little and Bertus Baldwin are fascinating women in their own right. And it's interesting to see the stage that they take during their children's lives and after, because unfortunately all the mothers survive their children. I think, maybe with the exception of Baldwin, I don't remember now. But anyway, it's really interesting. My only complaint is there's not enough about the women. I wish there was more in there. And Tubbs addresses that. She says, like, this is really just the beginning. Like, I've gone through letters, I've done everything I possibly can, but I hope that there's more to this conversation. So I hope you will enjoy it as well. Bye. Morning, happy Tuesday. Book review day. Today's book is James Bridle's Way of Being. And I walked into a bookshop in Linden Hills, Minnesota, and I had kind of five books in mind that I was interested in, and I was kind of looking for on the shelf, but the cover of this one just kind of jumped off the shelf at me. And I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover and whatever, but in truth, you do, right? I mean, it's your first glimpse of it. You get the image, you get the title, you get the author's name, obviously. All of those things are cues that you look for about whether or not you're going to be interested in it. And this one, not only did the cover grab me, but then the subject, animals, plants, machines, search for planetary intelligence. I've been reading a lot of stuff and listening to a lot of things about AI and kind of machine learning and also the early years of the computers. And so this just happened to be right up my alley. And I'll say, like, it delivers. You know, I'd never heard of this book before, but pretty quickly I realized it was going to be something I was interested in. And reading it really has been a joy. And my friend Dan refers to these kind of books as a thinky book. He would not take it to the beach necessarily. I probably would because that's the kind of stuff I like to read. But it is very sciencey and I mean it's very well written also, so it's engaging and interesting. And one of the things that I love is every chapter Bridle goes through and kind of dissects an aspect of intelligence. And, so chapter one, he really spends some time talking about how we measure intelligence among animals and how unfair that might be because, we do like the mirror test to see how they react to the reflection. And then sometimes we put a mark on their head and see if they notice that something is amiss. Um, and how some animals engage with that and some don't. So for a long time, elephants failed the mirror test, although we knew they were highly intelligent, and so we didn't understand why until somebody thought like, oh, maybe we should give them a bigger mirror or put the mirror up higher where they might see it. And there were like kind of tool tests where orangutans and gorillas would engage with tools, but some of the smaller um, apes and primates that live in trees were not. But as soon as they put the tool up above them, then suddenly they engaged with it. So, so much of what Bridle does in this book is challenging thinking about intelligence and how we measure that and how very human centric our gauges are. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's what we know, um, but then there's a chapter, probably my favorite, is the one where he talks about plants and their intelligence and how they learn and how they interact with one another and how they engage with the outside world, which are things I knew. Like I knew trees have circuits and, I mean, not circuits, but networks of communication. And obviously I've seen plants react to different things, stimuli and whatever. And so the chapter Wood Wide Web really investigates that. He takes some time and just kind of digs in and talks about different studies and the different ways we can see plants react. So anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I definitely recommend James Bridle's Ways of Being. Thanks. Have a great day. Morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy book review day. Today is The Dawn of Everything, A New History of Humanity, David Graeber, David Wengrow. One of my very favorite books I've read in a while. And so much so that I actually listened to it on audiobook and then read the physical book and actually bought copies and sent them to some people as well because it just was wow, it's kind of mind bending to read it. So one of them is an archaeologist, and one was an anthropologist. I think it's Graeber passed in 2020, just after the book was completed. And basically, this was kind of a pet project of theirs. And it was kind of I don't know that they knew that it was going to become this book when they started it. But man, I am glad I did, or that they did. And you look at it, and it's a big book. It could have been twice or three times as long. They cut it down as short as they possibly can, and they even address the size of the book in the writing. And I'll also add, like, from this bookmark down, those are the sources. So a good finger's width of paper are the endnotes and footnotes and references. It's easily 150 pages or more. So it is well documented, well researched, and 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 in short, totally worth your time. Really interesting book that just kind of makes you rethink a lot of things. In an encapsulated form, it's a challenge to ask better questions and to challenge the norms that we've been given through time and history. And so what it does is it goes through and it looks at um, early interactions between Europeans and indigenous cultures. It evaluates all of the civilizations around the world that we have access to. And I think Wingrove was the archaeologist, who actually has field research. And a lot of these civilizations have been discounted because they didn't fit the model or our expectations. And our expectations are built on the existing model of civilization. And in some ways, we just don't think of the other possibilities, but there are many of them. And that's one of the things the book does a really good job of, is walking you through, like, what are some other possibilities of civilization? What could it have looked like other than the models we have today? And if we don't just look to Egypt and we don't just look to Greek and Roman culture, um, what else is out there? And they look all around the world, big and small, um, European, indigenous, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, like, they pull all of these sources together, and it is super interesting to hear the diversity and how the things that we're basing our understanding of civilization are really the outliers, not the norm. Um, and and then the discussion is like, okay, great, then how did we get here and why? And they walk you through that. Gosh, there's a chapter in there about, like, why cities were built, that really is mind bending. I mean, it's not what you would expect. There's a chapter in there about, like, how kings became a thing and why. The multiple times that slavery has been a thing and then abolished and then back again. Um, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's a book that just asks you to ask better questions and to challenge the things you've been told and see what the other possibilities are. Um, it's really well written and engaging as well. Like, I know sometimes the thinky books are hard, because they're dealing with complicated things. But the two Davids do a really good job with it. Anyway, I would definitely recommend The Dawn of Everything: A New History of Humanity, David Graeber and David Wengrow. Um, I know it's something I'll be coming back to again. So thanks. Have a great day. I almost said happy Tuesday, but happy unsolicited book review. So this is the bonus episode because I forgot to review this book. This is the novel that I have enjoyed the most this year, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And I'll say there's a lot of competition. I enjoyed a lot of books this year, but this is the one that I keep coming back to. And the short premise is that there are two computer programmers who develop games, and they meet in college, I think, high school maybe, and then renew their friendship in college. And they kind of make puzzles for each other, and that evolves into game design. And then they form a company, and then there's kind of a falling out, and then resolution happens. And what I love about the book is, even though it is about computer game design, that is not something you have to be passionate about. I mean, it really could be about anything, but the way Zeman crafts these characters, they're really interesting. They don't do a lot of the normal um, tropes in books. You know, when you have a male and a female together, you assume that they're going to have a romantic entangle, and that's going to be the focus of the book, and that's not necessarily the case. I won't ruin it because their relationship is really complicated and interesting, which is part of what I love about it. The other thing I love about it is, as somebody who played a lot of the 80s video games on computers, um, I don't know. It was nostalgic. It made me remember things that I had forgotten. It made me rethink some of the games I played and how they came to be and who designed these. It caused me to kind of fall down this rabbit hole of reading books about like Sierra games and like the King's Quest games and things that I enjoyed, and a lot of those games from the time. Um, I grew up in a time where those games were expensive, but we actually had a store, our video store, that rented computer games. And so you could go and borrow computer games, and some of them you could copy, some of them you couldn't. Some of them had like copy protection and like a little booklet thing. And maybe some people had a father who went and photocopied that for you. That might have happened. Um, because I loved those games and I couldn't afford all the ones that I wanted. So for me, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow hits all of these things. I mean, it's this tragic story, it's this love story, it is a book about friendship, it's a book about just relationships in general. And then it also, has really thoughtful insights into video games and how they are more elevated than just a simple entertainment. There's more going on there, and in fact, those video games maybe are some of our great writing that is being overlooked because it doesn't fit into a neat book. But I would definitely recommend Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. What are you reading?